In this lesson, we're gonna make our select box element controllable by the parent component, meaning that we will keep track of the selected value inside of state variable of the parent component. And additionally, whenever a user will click on this reset button, the currently selected option of the select box should be reset. So let's get started and determine which component contains this base select component. As we can see in a tree of components, this component is contained within timeline item component. So let's open up this component inside of editor. And in here we already have a constant which is supposed to store currently selected option. And this constant is passed to base select component as selected prop. So now within the base select component, we should somehow notify parent component whenever selected option will be changed. And there is native DOM event called change, which we can assign a listener to directly on this select element. And once this event occurs, we're going to fire an event with the name select to the parent component. And along with this event, we should also pass the value of the currently selected option, which we can get by accessing event object via variable event, and the DOM element which has triggered this event is stored within target property in here. And then we can access value of this select element via value property. And since our base select component is gonna fire custom event with the name select, let's declare this event by using macro define emits. At the same time, we're going to assign validation function to validate payload of this event. As a payload, we're gonna be passing currently selected option value. And this option value should always be a number. So let's write down the check and make sure that the type of the passed value will be a number. As a next step, we're gonna have to listen for this custom event from parent component. Let's switch over to timeline item component, and on base select component, we're gonna use event directive and specify event name which we will listen for. Event name is select. And once this event is received, we're gonna update value of the variable selected activity ID and assign newly selected option value which we can get from event variable. And after this, in the browser, we're gonna see the following. When we select timeline item component in here, on the right side we can see that the initial value of the selected activity ID variable is 3. That means activity with an ID of 3 should be selected on the page in that select box. And then this value is gonna be passed as a property inside of base select component in the property with the name selected. And once we'll try to change the value of the select box, we will notice inside of timeline item component that the selected activity ID variable's value has changed, and it has received ID of the first activity. And then this updated activity ID should be passed down to base select component within selected prop. But in fact, we don't see it in here. Selected property still contains initial value at 3. So this doesn't work currently because that selected activity ID variable is not a reactive variable, and Vue does not re-render select box component whenever its value changes. So we're gonna have to convert this variable into a reactive variable by using ref function. Let's also go up and write down import for this ref function from the Vue package. And this time, whenever we're gonna receive select event from base select component, we're gonna assign new value of the selected option to this reactive variable selected activity ID, which should cause re-rendering of a certain parts of our template, particularly those parts that depend on this reactive variable, including this base select component, because it receives the value of this reactive variable as a property with the name selected. And within this base select component, that expression inside of selected attribute in here should be evaluated again based on the updated value of the selected property. A newly selected option should be shown on the page within the select box. So let's do it one more time. Let's update value of this select element. It causes value 2 to be assigned to selected activity ID variable. But this time, in addition to that, this updated value will be passed down to base select component. And as we can see in here, selected property got new value. But looks like right now this value is a string, but we need this to be a number. So to convert string to a number, we will just use plus sign in front of this expression when we are sending currently selected option value to the parent component with the event select. And now in the browser we'll check it out one more time. after modifying value of the select box element, we'll see that this time value of the selected activity ID variable as well as value of the selected property inside of a base select component is indeed number. And now last thing that we'll do in this lesson is to reset value of the select box element by clicking on the reset button. We're going to register click listener on the base button component, and once we receive this click event, we're going to emit another event to the parent component with the name select. And as a payload, we're gonna pass null, since we'd like to reset currently selected option. And one more time, let's take a look in the browser. Initial value for the selected activity ID property is 1, but after we modify value in the select box, it was properly updated, and after we're gonna click on the reset button, it is supposed to get value of null, which is what's happening right now. But this still does not work as expected, yes, because if we take a look at the select element, we still can see here a selected activity. But instead what this select element should show as a selected value when our variable selected activity ID is null is default option with a text rest, which is not the case right now. So we're gonna fix it in the next lesson.